He was just riding his bike, minding his own business, when flashing lights cut through the night. In moments, what should have been a simple stop turned into something far darker. They didn't know who they were dealing with, or what would come next. By the time backup arrived, it wasn't just about one man on a bike. It was about power, fear, and a mistake that would shake an entire town. What really happened on that lonely stretch of road? It started like any other afternoon. Marcus, a 27-year-old mechanic known for fixing anything with wheels, had just finished tuning up an old Harley for a neighbor. With the sun dipping low, he hopped on his own bike for a quick ride through the quiet back roads he knew by heart. No rush, no worries, just the hum of the engine and the smell of summer rain still lingering in the air. Marcus wasn't famous, but everyone in town knew him. The guy who'd help a stranger on the side of the road, the friend who never missed a Sunday barbecue. To him, this ride was routine, nothing more than clearing his head after a long day. But miles ahead, things were already shifting. A patrol car lingered near the county line, its headlights cutting through the dusk like watchful eyes. Marcus didn't notice. He was thinking about dinner, about calling his sister back, about tomorrow's workload at the shop. But the road wasn't as empty as it looked. Somewhere in the distance, a decision was being made. One that would turn this peaceful ride into a confrontation he never saw coming. What none of them knew, not Marcus, not the officers waiting in the dark, was that this night would ignite something far bigger than a simple traffic stop. The ride was smooth, until it wasn't. A flash of blue and red in Marcus's mirrors jolted him from his thoughts. At first, he figured it was routine. Maybe a broken taillight, maybe nothing at all. But as he slowed to the side of the empty road, the air shifted. The cruiser door slammed harder than it needed to. Two officers stepped out, hands already hovering near their holsters. "License and registration," one barked, not asked, barked. Marcus complied, calm but confused. He'd done nothing wrong, yet their eyes weren't on his papers. They were on him. Questions came sharp and fast. "Where are you headed? Who owns this bike? What's in your bag?" It didn't sound like protocol. It sounded like suspicion, like they'd already decided who he was. When Marcus reached for his wallet, one officer flinched, hand snapping to his gun. "Slow!" he shouted, loud enough to echo off the trees. Marcus froze, heart pounding. He kept his hands where they could see them. He'd heard too many stories to make a sudden move, but the tone shifted from tense to hostile. They ordered him off the bike, told him to put his hands on the seat. The other officers circled, eyeing him up and down like prey. Then came the words Marcus would never forget. "You people think you can just ride through here." He tried to explain. This was his town, his road. They didn't care. One reached for cuffs while the other called for backup. Marcus's pulse spiked. Backup? For what? He hadn't raised his voice, hadn't resisted, hadn't done a thing. That's when he heard the distant rumble. Not from police cruisers, but from something heavier. The kind of sound that shakes the ground before you see what's coming. The officers didn't notice. Not yet. They were too busy trying to push Marcus down onto the gravel, barking orders, calling him boy like it was still 1965. He bit his tongue, fighting anger with every ounce of willpower. One wrong word, one wrong twitch, and he knew how this story could end. Then headlights appeared on the horizon. Not one pair, not two. A line of them. Big, squared, military-grade, Humvees, rolling in fast. The officers froze, glancing at each, other unsure what to do. Marcus didn't move, didn't speak. All he knew was that something massive was bearing down on this lonely road, and it wasn't stopping. What happened next would flip the power dynamic in an instant. But for Marcus, caught between rage and fear, one question burned in his mind. Would they even let him live long enough to see it? The gravel bit into Marcus's palms as they forced him down. His bike lay on its side, still humming, headlights slicing through the dark. He could feel the cold steel of cuffs against his wrists before he even understood why. He hadn't fought, hadn't resisted, but it didn't matter. Their voices rose, sharp, frantic, like they were trying to invent a reason to justify what? they were doing. Then, the low thunder of engines closed in. Headlights flooded the road. One Humvee, then another, then another. Within seconds, the quiet back road looked like a war zone staging ground. The officers froze. Their hands, still, on Marcus, trembled just slightly. These weren't police vehicles, these were military. And the man climbing out of the lead Humvee wore stars on his shoulder, a general. Marcus barely had time to breathe before the general's voice cut through the night like a blade. "Get your hands off him. Now." The officers stammered, fumbling for words. But the general wasn't asking. Dozens of soldiers poured out, surrounding the scene, their presence heavy, unyielding. Marcus's heart raced. He didn't know if he was safe or in even more danger. Why were they here? How did they know his name? One of the officers tried to speak. "Sir, we were just..." The general stepped closer, eyes locked on Marcus. "Is this how you treat him? On his own road?" The soldier's boots crunched on the gravel, forming a wall between Marcus and the men who had pinned him down just seconds ago. The night air vibrated with anger, authority, and something else Marcus couldn't quite name. Justice, maybe, but justice with teeth. And in that charged silence, with the entire road lit up like daylight, Marcus realized something terrifying and electric all at once. These men hadn't just stopped the wrong biker. They'd just picked a fight they couldn't win. Marcus didn't spend that night in jail, but he didn't go home the same man either. The cuffs came off, the officers backed down, and the general's convoy escorted him safely out of that dark stretch of road. But the damage was done. It wasn't the bruises on his wrists that haunted him. It was the knowledge that, without witnesses, his story could have ended very differently. News of the confrontation spread fast. Some called it a misunderstanding. Others called it what? It was racial profiling with a badge. But for Marcus, it wasn't just another headline. It was personal. It was a reminder that no matter how honest, how hardworking, how respected you are, the color of your skin can still make you a target. In the weeks that followed, the officers faced questions they couldn't dodge. Their careers would never recover. Yet Marcus knew this wasn't about two bad cops. It was about a system where moments like this aren't rare, they're routine. He kept riding his bike, but every time flashing lights appeared in his mirror, his stomach tightened. That kind of fear doesn't just disappear. And he wasn't alone. This wasn't just Marcus's story. It's the story of countless others whose names never make the news, whose lives are disrupted or ended over nothing at all. So the question lingers. How many more Marcuses will it take? How many more nights like this before something truly changes? Because until we face it, until we fix it, this road doesn't just belong to Marcus. It belongs to all of us. And the next set of flashing lights could be for anyone. The stories presented on this channel are entirely fictional and created solely for entertainment purposes. We believe in a world where everyone enjoys equal rights under the law and where society continues to progress toward fairness, development, and justice. Our goal is to share thought-provoking, meaningful stories that encourage reflection and inspire positive change. Any resemblance to real people, events, or organizations is purely coincidental and unintentional. These stories do not reference actual individuals, incidents, or entities and carry no political, social, or religious agenda.